Welcome to The Nameless. This story is not for everyone, but if you're still here, take a deep breath. Let's begin.
The hotel was empty for decades, so who kept leaving fresh towels at room 9? I still remember standing in that hallway, holding a towel that was warm, actually warm, like it had just come out of a dryer, and realizing that the only working power in the entire building was a single exit sign flickering by the stairs. I knew no one else was supposed to be there. I knew the place had been shut down since before I was born. But the towel, it smelled clean, too clean, like detergent I didn't bring with me. I should have left then. I should have figured out why the silence felt so heavy it made my chest tighten. But I told myself there had to be a simple explanation, and I kept going. I shouldn't have. I was 25 that year and working for a small historical mapping project. It wasn't anything glamorous. My job was to document abandoned towns and buildings across the Midwest, photograph them, log coordinates, and record any structural issues for potential preservation work. Mostly it was empty factories, forgotten train stations, and houses collapsing under their own roofs. Nothing scary, just lonely and old. My supervisor sent me to a ghost town called Wilmore Junction. I hadn't heard of it. Apparently, it was once a thriving crossroads town off a railroad spur. Then the tracks moved and the businesses slowly died out. All that remained were a few homes, a post office that looked like it sagged from exhaustion, and a hotel called the Silver Mare. Locals warned me it wasn't safe. Not because of anything paranormal, just because it was old, unstable, and partially burned in the early 90s. They told me I could photograph the outside, but shouldn't step inside. One guy said the floors were so soft you might fall straight through to the basement. I believed him. But I also needed the interior shots if I wanted a chance at getting hired full-time. So I went. The Silver Mare stood at the end of Main Street like a huge, forgotten wall. 3 stories tall, once white but now stained gray by rain and time. Its sign was barely readable. Most of the windows were broken or boarded up. I expected a strong, musty smell when I pushed the side door open. Instead, I got this faint, stale cold, like a room that had been closed for years, but frozen, not rotting. The lobby looked surprisingly intact. Dust everywhere, but the counters were still standing, and the chairs hadn't collapsed. It was dark, though. The only light came from gaps in the wooden boards and a single flickering exit sign down the hallway. I kept telling myself this was normal, just a dead building. The first weird thing happened maybe 10 minutes in. I was photographing the front desk when I heard soft steps on the floor above. Slow, creaking steps, like someone carefully pacing. I froze. The building was supposed to be empty. I waited, listening. The steps continued for maybe 5 seconds, then stopped. I called out, just one simple "hello?" My voice sounded small in the cold air. No answer. I told myself it was just settling wood, or maybe some animal. There was always a mundane reason for noises in old buildings. I went back to taking pictures, but as I walked deeper into the hallway, I noticed something strange. Every door was numbered in rusty metal plaques, except for room 9. That door had a clean brass number on it, almost shiny. No dust on it at all. That didn't make sense. Nothing else in the place had been touched in decades. Curious, I walked closer. That's when I saw the towel. A white hotel towel folded neatly on the floor just outside the door. Clean, no dust, no dirt. It almost glowed in the dim hallway. I squatted down and touched it. Warm. I pulled my hand back quickly. I stared at the towel, then at the dark gap under room 9's door. My heart started beating harder, but my brain kicked into that stubborn mode where it tried to explain everything away. Maybe a squatter lived here. Maybe they'd washed the towel somewhere else. Maybe I'd interrupted them. I should have left, but I didn't. Instead, I whispered, "Is someone staying here?" My voice echoed slightly. Nothing. I walked backward a few steps, keeping my eyes on the door. Something about it made the air feel heavier, thicker. I forced myself to keep moving. I figured maybe I'd come back later and just peek in quickly. But when I reached the staircase to the second floor, I heard something up there again. Slow movement. Not walking this time, more like someone dragging their hand along a wall. A soft, long scrape. I held my breath and listened. It stopped. For some reason, that silence felt worse than the noise. I went upstairs anyway. I needed the photos. At least that's what I told myself. The truth was that something about the place pulled me in, like a question I needed to answer. The second floor was darker than the first. Most of the windows here were boarded too. My flashlight beam cut through thick shadows and revealed peeling wallpaper and collapsed door frames. I kept snapping pictures, trying to drown out the uneasy feeling building in my stomach. Then, halfway down the hallway, I found something that made no sense at all. A housekeeper's cart. Perfectly clean. Stocked with towels, tiny soaps, rolls of toilet paper, everything. The plastic was yellowed, but the items on it, they looked untouched. And someone had placed a key on top. A room key tag with the number 9 written in fading ink. My throat tightened. I picked it up slowly. It felt warm too. That's when something thumped in the hallway behind me. Not loud, just a soft, deliberate tap on the floor, like someone placing their foot down gently. I turned fast, shining my flashlight down the corridor. Nobody. Just the dark, stretching toward the far fire escape door. I held the key tighter. "If someone's here, I'm not trying to bother you," I said, my voice shaking a little. Nothing moved, but the air felt different, like someone was standing close, just outside the beam of light. I backed away from the noise and returned to the stairs. My nerves were shot now. I kept hearing faint things behind me, the sound of a door latch settling, the whisper of fabric brushing a wall. Every time I spun around, the hallway was empty. Back on the first floor, I stopped in front of room 9. The towel was gone. Not on the floor, not anywhere in the hall. I knew I hadn't imagined it. The warmth, the smell, the weight in my hands. Someone had taken it back, or it had been meant for someone who wasn't me. I should have left then. I even walked halfway to the exit door, but the key in my hand felt heavy, important, like it was pushing me toward the room. It wasn't curiosity anymore. It felt like pressure, like the silent expectation of someone waiting behind that door. My steps back to room 9 sounded too loud on the old wood. I was sweating now. My fingers trembled as I slid the key into the lock. The knob turned easily. Inside, the smell hit me first. Not musty or rotten, fresh, like cleaned linens and something faintly sweet, maybe an old perfume. My flashlight revealed a room that looked like it had been preserved in time. Bed neatly made, curtains drawn but intact, carpets dusty but undisturbed. A suitcase sat open on the dresser, old-fashioned leather with a cracked handle. And there, on the bed, was the towel, folded again, waiting. I whispered, "Is someone here?" But the room stayed still and quiet. I stepped inside. The door clicked shut behind me. I spun around immediately, grabbed the knob and pulled. It wouldn't open. It didn't budge at all. I rattled it harder, panicking now, but it felt like someone was holding it closed from the other side. My breathing got loud, too loud. I backed away from the door and realized the curtain by the window was moving, just slightly, like someone had brushed past it. My flashlight flickered, then went out. I smacked it against my palm. Nothing. I froze, listening. I heard breathing. Not mine. Slow, calm, close. Somewhere between me and the window. I couldn't see anything, not even my hand in front of my face. I stepped backward until my back touched the cold door. I whispered, "Please let me out." My voice was barely audible. The breathing stopped. For a long, cold moment, there was nothing. Then, the door behind me unlocked with a soft click. I didn't hesitate. I yanked it open and stumbled out into the hallway, almost falling. I didn't look back. I ran down the hallway, past the dim exit sign, through the lobby, and out into the daylight. I didn't stop running until I reached my car. I didn't even shut the door fully before I sped off. I drove 20 miles before I realized I was still holding the key to room 9. I threw it into the passenger seat and kept driving. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. Even hours later, when I checked into a cheap motel outside of town, I felt like someone was standing just behind my shoulder. I tried to sleep, but every time I closed my eyes, I saw that dark room. I heard that slow breathing. When morning came, I decided I needed to return the key. Not to the hotel, no chance I was going back there, but maybe to the local sheriff. I figured they should know someone might be living inside the building. But when I grabbed the key to bring it in, it was cold now. Ice cold. Almost painful to hold. I wrapped it in a towel and put it in my bag. I drove to the sheriff's office in the next town. I explained everything as calmly as I could. The sheriff listened, then sighed and told me something I didn't expect. That hotel was evacuated in '91, he said. Fire in the basement. They got everyone out except the night staff. Housekeeper never made it to the exit. They think she got lost in the smoke, but they didn't find remains. I asked if her room number was 9. He shook his head. Rooms were closed. Staff used the basement to store linens. There wasn't supposed to be anyone on the first floor during the fire. They never figured out why she was up there. He took the key from me and gave me a tired look. We get stories about that place every few years. Doors opening, lights on, towels moved. But it's always before we go check. Nothing when we get there. He paused. You should stay away from it. I nodded. I didn't tell him about the breathing, or the warm towel, or how, when he set the key on his desk, it shifted slightly on its own. Not much. Just enough that we both noticed. He didn't say anything then, just slid the key into an evidence envelope, sealed it, and thanked me for coming in. I left town that afternoon. Months passed. I finished the project. I got a different job. I tried to forget about room 9. But sometimes, when my house is quiet and I'm the only one awake, I hear that same slow breathing behind me. I always turn around. I never see anything. And once, only once, I found a freshly folded towel on my couch. Warm, clean, waiting.